Well, well, well. Let's see how bits and pieces are going. This is the horrible bit where I make sure everything's actually functioning. My camera has failed on me at least twice trying to get this all loaded up. Do say hello in the chat. Big question before I start going live. Put the tweets out, put the messages out. We're going to crack the beer open momentarily. Let's quickly actually go grab that whilst I'm talking to people. That's a hand. Oh, we need a glass. And that seems good a time as any to run that down. That goes away. We're going to press this button and hope everything works. Hey, just about. A little bit of a weird sheen on the camera there. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Pull that towards me ever so slightly. Not quite sure what's happened there. Maybe it's the lighting. I don't really know, but I look a bit fuzzy and a bit blurry. Maybe I actually need to clean the camera. Or I could probably try buying a new one and upgrading the setup from what I usually do. We'll give folk another minute just to join before we start, because we're going to break out this, which is 10% apparently. But after the week I've had, I'm going to rectify myself to that. A few people join in the chat. I can see if you're a first timer in the chat as well. You brave man, Jonathan. Thank you very much for that. We're going to pull this out whilst we let people come in. Remember to always drink responsibly. Remember, folks, booze is quality over quantity. There's no point drinking yourself into a stupor if you're using terrible booze. Either way. Ooh, we're just going to let that settle for a second. There we go. That's better. Frame rate started dropping a bit. Either way, there's only one way to start this, even though we're like, guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary. Well, for once, it's Friday, and it's 8 PM, and welcome to this week's slightly delayed BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, and we are back once again to take you through the machinations, the madness, and everything else that comes with it of the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But we always make an effort to have a look all the way around all the leagues. That means we do the National as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. A massive good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining us on the slightly unusual day of a Friday. It's been a week. It's been a bit of a week. As you can appreciate, it's been very busy here at BOTW Towers. But before we start getting into too much of a hockey chat, let's just go through a few bits of housekeeping before we start. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. That is the website where I've written about British hockey now since 2011, so that's 12 and a half years worth of going on about this. Started focusing on the Bison, but now much more of a general kind of focus, especially with the Bison not playing this year. There's we've got our Banners on the Wall Banners on the Road series, apologies, where basically any game I go to this year is getting some sort of write-up. I'll talk about Wednesday in a bit on what I'm going to do with Wednesday. But every game I'm going to this year is going to get some sort of Banners on the Road write-up. And the idea is I'm going to a bunch of different places all over the shop. It's less than a month now until I will be in Dumfries. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, any of those bits and pieces there, as well as the Hockey Stories series, which is long-form pieces of content, in-depth interviews and in-depth pieces that go from the 19th century to the present day, into war, behind the Iron Curtain and back again, players, officials, all sorts of people from across the weird and wonderful world of ice hockey. That's there. The old BOTW podcast is there. Dice Hockey, our tabletop ice hockey simulation game that you can download, that's there. A bunch of stuff at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. We're on YouTube. Hello, we're live. Normally this is on a Wednesday, but I was a little bit busy on Wednesday at 8 PM, so I wasn't really able to do the show. So we bumped this week to Friday. We, of course, though, normally are around Wednesday nights, 8 PM here on YouTube at the Banners on the Wall YouTube channel. If you haven't already, head down there, subscribe, feed the algorithm hamster so that he runs on his wheel, and also in the description The links to Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, as well as our virtual busking hat. So the link is down there, buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. I'm not saying you have to contribute, and please, if you can't, if you're strapped for cash, please don't feel obligated. What it is, like I say, imagine this being like Covent Garden in London. This is the stuff I put out. The busking hat goes round. If you want to feel like chucking in a few quid, you can do that. That's down below, buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. And of course, being that we're on YouTube, there's the chat function over here. If we're live, please, as we say every week, comments, questions, anything you want to chuck in as we're going along. Always try to make sure that we make good use of the chat and that people can kind of get involved so we can make this a bit of a discussion and less of me just talking at my computer for a bit. But of course, if you are sticking anything in the chat, please remember the golden rule here at BOTW on the What's Current stream. That is DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we will all have a wonderful time. So, that's the beer. Cheers, everyone. As tomorrow is not a school night and I don't have a game to go to, so I'm doing it. Oh, that is very good, actually. Big shout there to 8 Wireds Affogato Imperial Stout. That is very, very nice. That's from New Zealand, so hopefully I can't search through your social media and find that thing you ever said anything about Guildford. Hello, Mac. But yeah, bit of a crazy week here in BOTW land. Before we kind of crack on too much about talking about some of the other bits and pieces that have happened, because of course we need to talk about all the results from the weekend. We need to talk about what's happening in the National Division. We need to talk about Swindon, and I've got some words from the Cats ahead of tonight. But I think the thing I'd say to everybody is just a massive thank you. I have been on the end of a fantastic amount of support and good vibes and everything this week, and it's been really, really appreciated. It's quite strange because, like, I've said for a really, really long time that I do all this stuff, but I never quite know what my place is in British hockey. I don't really know where I stand, where I sort of fall. What am I and what do I do? I just kind of do stuff and I enjoy doing it. And so kind of what I am within British hockey is always quite a hard thing to kind of, for me at any rate, I find it very hard to pin down what I do. But I think about, if we go back as far as Sunday, Sunday I got to commentate with, one of my best friends in the sport, in Joe Scott. And aside from the fact he's one of my friends, I genuinely think Joe is one of the best at what he does in the country, commentary-wise. And you think as well, Joe's also put out the NHL yearbook this week, which if you haven't downloaded, you need to go and download. Hopefully he can raise a lot of money for charity as well for that. But such a great resource that's come out. That was Sunday, when we got our commentary interrupted by a 9-foot anthropomorphic bee, who threatened to throw my notes off of the balcony at the commentary position in Slough. Monday, I got a flu jab, because you should all get vaccinated for things if you're eligible for these things, which meant I didn't sleep brilliantly. Wednesday, I did tweet out about it. Yeah, I had a very weird day on Wednesday where I held the 2020 Olympic torch. I held the 2022 Paralympic winter torch. And then I got to commentate on the Elite League for the first time. My first ever time doing play-by-play. So not my first ever commentary. I've been fortunate to do that a couple of times before. But yeah, my first time ever doing play-by-play on commentary. And I did it in the top level of the game in Britain, which was a bit nerve-wracking, I won't lie. Guildford, of course, as a club, is not my natural bedfellow by any stretch of the imagination. When I walked in, I was told I needed to go and kind of find the person running the supporters club table just to kind of check in and just say hello and pick up some bits and pieces. And I'm obviously brand new. A lot of Flames people don't know who I am. And I mentioned that that I'd obviously been to the rink before, being a Bison fan. He told me to wash my mouth out, and I said, "Don't worry, sir. I'm here to class the joint up a bit." So, like I say, Guildford is not a club I ever envisioned that this kind of thing would happen with. But the Flames and I did have a conversation during the summer. I said that I've obviously got a lot of stuff I'm doing on, but if your guys are not available, give me a shout and let me see what I can do. Well, they gave me a shout because their guys were unavailable, and I was able to come and do it. And I had a really, really good time. I can't speak highly enough of how well the match night stream crew at the Flames were in terms of looking after me, in terms of making sure that I had what I needed, that I understood how they operate things, giving me the resources to be able to, pick up bits and pieces that were being said down by the ice, so I could pick up things like penalties, goal scorers, times, bits and pieces like that. And then they just basically left me to my own devices and let me kind of run things how I wanted to run. And then I'm like hearing my own voice off of like the Elite League main feed, like social media feed, which is a bit strange. Thursday, dead as a doornail. Didn't do anything Thursday until the point where just before going to bed, I won a holiday in a competition that I mindlessly entered on Twitter. So yeah, this week has been utterly bonkers, and then we're here and back into the world of kind of what I know, and back into the NIHL, which is still my home port and still my bread and butter. And I think of the fact that I've got 2 NIHL commentaries lined up in the next sort of month or so, and will we see me again? Will we see me again in the Elite League? Probably is the feeling off the back of what off of how Wednesday went, but I don't get there without you guys. For the folks who dip in and dip out, or the folks who are here the entire time, that kind of support that you guys give is massively appreciated. I talk a lot about my faith, and I talk a lot about my wife and my son, and they are my biggest supporters. I cannot deny that. But I'm really, really thankful as well for you guys who take the time to kind of drop in, listen to stuff on the stream, give me feedback, tell me when I'm wide of the mark, tell me if I'm on the mark, that kind of thing. And so it's appreciated. It genuinely is. And the door, the other doors are starting to open now, and that's what I wanted to make of this year. My club is not there, and I said I need to kind of walk into the wilderness a bit. And kind of find what I can find and do what I can do, and it feels like I'm being true to what I said I was going to do, and that's big and that's important. I don't want to be someone who doesn't back up what he says, and I feel like we are like a month or so into the season, and I've done what I kind of needed to. I've done what I said I was going to do, and I want to keep kind of pushing on. And there's a bunch of stuff in the NIHL I need to get done as well. There's interviews that I've got lined up that I need to do, and there's a lot of exciting stuff that if you enjoy the content I've put out over the last couple of years, then I think you're going to be really, really pleased with what's coming from BOTW and from me. So thank you to everybody. We now though turn to slightly more frustrating news, which of course is the situation in Swindon. Folk will have seen the video doing the rounds from BBC Points West, where they were, and where they've gone inside the link, and we can kind of see just how bad things have got. The fact there's still no power in the majority of the building, the lights aren't on, people the reporter and the manager walking around with torches and the like, to kind of sort of show that things are not in the best of states. And it looks like at the moment, and we've obviously seen with the Wildcats, they've been rearranging games left, right and centre with a view to kind of being back on the ice in Swindon in January. Now that's going to make it very, very tough for the Cats. There was also as well a season ticket holders supporters club forum last night in one of the hotels in Swindon, where Steve Nell and Aaron Nell have kind of gone through bits and pieces with some of the fans. I believe as well, I haven't seen it come out, but I believe that season ticket holders will also kind of be being emailed a summary of that meeting. Now I did reach out to the Wildcats ahead of tonight just to kind of get some sort of word, a bit of an update as to kind of what's going on. In view of last night, the Cats very kindly provide me something which I'm just finding quickly so I can read out. Generally, last night was positive. Steve Nell is working with the contractors and GLL, hoping for the rink to be open earlier than the timeline provided by the statement this week. The league have been helpful with fixtures, and the majority have been rearranged until mid/late November, but will be released when face-off times have been secured. The club would like to thank all other teams for their support shown in this process, as it is going to impact everyone. More news hopefully to follow next week or so, after some positive direct meetings with GLL and the council early this week. GLL Better, for those of you unfamiliar, are the organisation that runs the Link Centre on behalf of Swindon Borough Council. GLL Better also run Lee Valley. So make your own jokes on that one. But yes, we've as well just seen the knock-on effect of what's happening there The Wildcats acknowledging that in their statement for the fact that there is going to be impacts for other teams, and the one other team that we've definitely seen that's had an impact is the Swindon NIHL2 Wildcats. Interestingly, we've not had word from the Cats themselves, and we've had word from a lot of other teams bar them, but the word, of course, is out that the Swindon Wildcats 2 have withdrawn from NIHL2 South, unfortunately. Still trying to, like I say, I haven't actually seen like the official announcement from the Cats themselves on that front. But certainly the National Division team are carrying on at the moment. They're now actively rearranging fixtures. Swindon Wildcats 2 have withdrawn from NIHL2 South is the word currently. Just spitballing, but I don't see it beyond the realms of possibility for Planet Ice to mothball the Pitbulls and put the Wildcats in there. The issue that you have there, Jamie, is Planet Ice do not own the Pitbulls. They do not own the Pitbulls, and they do not have an interest. They do not have a fight now. They do not have an ownership stake in the Bristol Pitbulls. Now, I know there's a lot of discussion about this, and there was a lot of discussion during the summer, especially when it came to things to do with Sheffield and the like, and how many fingers Planet Ice have in their fingers that they have in pies. There is nothing written down that I've been able to evidence, and I would be able to be comfortably say that the Planet Ice have inside the Pitbulls. The Pitbulls, of course, as well have a contract with Planet Ice. Planet Ice are not in the position to just mothball Bristol in that sense. Just quickly skimming back because I'm aware there's a few bits and pieces that they've got there. Just looking at some of the fixtures from the Wildcats. So they've certainly rearranged a few of their bits and pieces at the end of the month. Where's the stuff from earlier this month as well? Just having to quickly fire my way back through the Wildcats' social media because it's just not sitting up properly for me to find. Because of course we know that they had their home game in Milton Keynes. It was Swilton Keynes, the missing link centre, as it were. Because there were obviously a few games. I know there's been sort of announcements of a couple of games sort of rearranged. Of course, we know that they've got their games in with Romford that have been rearranged. They've certainly the one fixture we know that has been changed is Swindon were due to be playing Leeds on the 14th, and that's now been that's going to be rearranged at some stage. Due to be playing the Knights at home on the 14th of October, this fixture is set to be arranged for a future date. We will now be playing Leeds away instead, so that swaps, and Swindon will travel to Leeds. The Peterborough fixtures have been swapped. I'm just working my way. I went my way from earliest to newest there, Ben, to try and get everything down there. So the Peterborough fixtures there. So they've swapped a few bits and pieces around. That Peterborough will now play Swindon in Peterborough on Saturday the 28th of October at 7 p.m. Swindon will then host Peterborough on Sunday the 14th of January with a time to be confirmed. Raiders away tomorrow is also a flipped game, so thank you for that. Of the 11 PI teams, only financial interest in Basingstoke and Peterborough. I believe my understanding again is that Planet Ice do not have a financial stake in the Peterborough Phantoms. It is not written down and it's not in Company's House, where it should be, given that they're a limited company. There is only one club where this is officially written down, that it can be evidenced without hearsay, that I can stand on. The Basingstoke Bison are owned by Planet Ice. The Peterborough Phantoms operate out of a Planet Ice rink, but Planet Ice, as far to the evidence that I have seen, do not have a financial stake in the Peterborough Phantoms. They do not have a financial stake in the Bristol Pitbulls. Do they have an influence over those two organisations? Very clearly, yes. Because Planet Ice own and operate the rinks that the two of them play in. But I've not seen any concrete evidence written down, because like I say, anything like that would need to be in Company's House. Planet Ice, there is nothing there that says Planet Ice have a financial interest in both those teams. So that's all we can say on that one. If somebody wants to give me the evidence, I'll quite happily look at it and I'll change my opinion. There is nothing wrong with having an opinion, being presented with alternative evidence, and then changing your opinion. If you're presented with concrete evidence to the contrary and you keep your opinion, you're an idiot. That's the big issue there. Haven't Bristol got big sellout crowds, though? Can't see why Planet I would want to bomb them out, to be honest. I don't think Swindon would be interested in entertaining it if that was the deal. And that's another thing for it as well, is that ultimately that shoots the National Division in the foot to bin off another team just so another team can play. It wouldn't necessarily make sense. Now, we do know, of course, that Steve Nell and Planet Ice have worked quite closely together and do work quite closely together. We look at the fact that Planet Ice sold the Leeds, what was the Leeds Chiefs to become the Leeds Knights, to Steve Nell and Aaron Nell. And there obviously is quite a cordial working relationship there. However, that does not necessarily, that in terms of ownership, doesn't work that way. Why would Planet Ice want to kick the Pitbulls out for the sake of a few Cats games when you're getting 28 decent crowds a year for Bristol games? I mean, the issue you've got, of course, with Bristol is that their form at the moment is not good. It's not good at all. And what will happen to Bristol if the form really starts dropping off? And of course, we'll talk about Bristol in a minute, but when we finish talking about Swindon, I mean, certainly it looks like that teams in the league are trying to accommodate Swindon as best as they possibly can. The Cats are going to have a lot of home games after Christmas. It's the best way to look at it. The thing I'm very interested in is there's obviously all this talk about shuffling games around. Where are Swindon training right now? That's the thing I'm very interested in. Where are they picking up ice? Because at the moment, you've probably got guys bouncing around left and right to Cardiff, to Bristol, possibly even to Oxford to train. You know, getting that level of cohesion is going to be very, very tough for Swindon. Though, of course, they did pick up a result at the weekend. They are not terrible. Because they're money orientated and Bristol are a dumpster fire at the moment. Things are clearly not going very, very well in Bristol, but the one thing I think the National Division owners have tried to show is the long game and keeping things around. Because if they're not focused on the long game, why would they have bothered to let Sheffield in when they didn't need to? Remember, they were going to boot out the Steel Dogs. They didn't want Tony Smith as an owner. Something brought them around. So they are money orientated. I don't think anybody would dispute that. But I don't think that necessarily follows that they would dump Bristol just to let Swindon in. That is very, very good beer. Steve Nell said, I've heard Steve Nell said they've got a slot on a Wednesday night in Bristol. Well, that's better than nothing. That's ability to train. That's good. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, for training it makes sense and they can shuffle things around. Like I say, for me, I'm just really pleased that Solway double header is going ahead, or I'd be driving to Scotland and not know what to do with myself. Would be the short version on that. Bristol never wanted to go into the National League, supposedly so, and still did. There's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said about whilst there are a lot of big power brokers within British hockey, you still got to do the thing. Thing still has to happen. Get the impression Swindon are trying to hold as many home games for the second half of the season when the link is over. Makes sense. That certainly does make sense. Oxford probably has too many local teams to accommodate the Wildcats. Hello, Kaidi. No, that's probably fair. I mean, it's just like I said, for me, because I wasn't aware as to what Swindon's training arrangements were. It's obviously not too far away, and as a training facility, certainly the Cats couldn't play out of Oxford. I think that would, aside from the fact I think that Oxford is too small. But yeah, I didn't know what sort of the availability of kind of ice time was for the Cats to have maybe trained there should they have needed to, because it's obviously not a billion miles away. Any football fans of Swindon Town would have obviously thought it blasphemy for such a thing to happen. And then you hear on the news in Swindon that the Swindon, I believe it's the Swindon Tiger Sharks, is the swimming team that's based out of the link, and they've got space to do one of their meets at one of the pools in Oxford. So Clearly, it's just a football thing where everybody hates each other. Either way, we need to have a quick squint at some results from last weekend in the National Division, which would be really helpful if I'd actually pressed the buttons to do that. What's going on there? Why is all of this gone wonky as soon as I need it to do that? That's not helpful at all. That is now not doing anything. That's really unhelpful. Why has that decided to break just as I needed to talk about things? Oh well. Can I... We're going to press some buttons here and see if we can do it this way. Oh, it has done it that way. And it's broken everything. That's really unhelpful. Let's press a few buttons. There we go. That's me fixing things on the fly. What have we got here? A few things in the chat. Do you know if cash flow will be a problem for them if they don't have many home games this year? It was an issue for D-side Dragons last year. Pass on that front. I mean, the sort of entity that obviously runs the Wildcats is the same entity that runs Leeds, so you think maybe they, there'll be elements. Steve Nell's not a bad businessman, so there'll hopefully be something there. The other thing I'm interested in is insurance. Surely there's an element of insurance here that'll be helping the Cats out with some amount of money. I think we should play 29 home games post-Christmas, according to Aaron last night. Fun times at the Link. Bristol have such good potential as a club, however, it just seems like some poor management decisions and questionable player actions are bringing them down. Seems like it. Jamie McElroy, because they were told that if they didn't, another team be placed in Bristol that would. I heard either Basingstoke or Gosport allegedly. You see, that's the issue. There's obviously been for some time a lot of discussion about whether Basingstoke would end up moving to Bristol because of the issues with the rink there, but nothing concrete's ever really come of it, so I it's not something I can kind of work with there. Either way, we have a quick squint at the results before we talk about the big news that came out of bigger news that came out of Bristol this week. Of course, we were on the air last week when Milton Keynes and Hull were doing battle, and Hull ruined it for MK, and a 6-4 win. A 6-4 win there for the Seahawks, who came from behind again to get a result. This time knocking off MK, and it put Hull back at the top of the National Division at least until the weekend, where Bristol's bad start to the season continued, and the Bees kept their good form going. A 7-2 win for Dom Gabai's side over at Cribbs Causeway. The Bees, of course, were 7-0 to the good in that game after 40 minutes. Elsewhere on Saturday, the Leeds Knights made a little bit of a meal of it. They were 3-0 down at home against Peterborough before coming back to win 8-4. Another game for the Phantoms where they've held a lead for a little bit of time, lost it, and then got just pushed away. Of course, happened to them against the Bees the weekend before, and now it's happened with them against the Knights, which is not ideal. Not the greatest results for Peterborough, though. Of course, we do know that they've had reinforcements come in ahead of this weekend. Sheffield with the comfortable 4-1 win against the Sharks. Performances are improving for Solway. They're starting to kind of get a bit more of a feel of the division. But as Martin Grubber said tonight in the new Solway Sharks podcast over on their YouTube channel, the thing for the Sharks now is just about getting themselves over the line. They've been trying some different things. They've been slowly improving. But the Steel Dogs at home are not to be trifled with. A 4-1 win for Jason Hewitt's side there. And then, Swindon at home in Swilton Keynes, but a comfortable 6-2 win for the Lightning ultimately in this one as they got back to winning ways after losing to Hull. And then the other game from Saturday, a solid win for the Tigers. They pulled themselves back. And they had a bit of a weird game that previous Sunday against the Bees, having been 4-0 down, then 6-4 up, and then losing in overtime. But they win in overtime against the Raiders. That led us then to last Sunday, where Hull's perfect start came to an end. That shootout loss at home to Telford, so a good 4-point weekend there for Tom Watkins' side. A great way to rebound from the weekend before for Tommy Watkins' boys. Gave them that one. And Swindon, they pick up a win. They win 5-1 away. The team with a rink with no power, training all over the place, barely able to get any ice time, and they win by 5-1. The Raiders again with another slow start. They started really slow last year as well, and of course grew into the season and built up and had that fantastic finish at the end. But yeah, not a great result there for the Raiders, and a game that they really, really will have been targeting for the win. Solway, they were 2-1 up in this game against Sheffield, and then let the lead slip. Jack Brammer with the game-winning goal, meaning that the Steel Dogs get a 4-point weekend against their Scottish opposition. 3-2, the final score at the Shark Tank. And then the game I was at, which is written up on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, which was the Knights' 3-2 victory over the Bees. The Knights are the Knights as good as they were last year? Hard to say. They only played with 2 imports in this game. Noah McMullen, a notable scratch because of injury. I think what was really interesting in this one, don't sound so surprised, the roster is still quite good. A lot of Leeds people I've talked to, though, Tom, are convinced that this team is not as good as it was last year. And I think that plays a lot into it. But I think what the Bees did really well in this game, and that's quite a tight scoreline. And Leeds occasionally, they had issues with the Bees last year, and they had issues with Basingstoke last year. They won the games, but they did get challenged quite heavily. And the one thing the Bees were really good at in this one was just not letting Leeds do a lot of Leeds things. But as soon as they got any amount of space, they were really challenged and caused a lot of problems. Josh Kelly blows an edge, Ollie Endicott scores. They're short-handed. Kieran Brown gets some space, they score. Matt Barron's game winner goes post, back of Britton Priest over the line. And it's those kind of things. Because the Bees, to their credit, have a lot of heart, hustle, energy. In terms of work rate, can't fault them. But they went 3-2 down and just didn't look like they knew what they needed to do. Lewis Coleman got called for, I can't remember the exact penalty, but he got called really late on. So the Bees had a 6-on-4 inside the last 2 minutes, and it just didn't trouble the penalty kill at all from the Knights. They looked comfortable, despite the fact there were 2 extra skaters on the ice. So Leeds get the win. But this game was as close as that scoreline kind of suggests. It was a fascinating game. Not the prettiest game of hockey, but actually the Bees did the best that they could to if it had become a really slick passing affair, there's only one team that's going to win that out of Leeds and anybody else in the National. But it was good. It was a really good, entertaining game. I think the fans got their money's worth. Really pleased to have had the opportunity to commentate on it as well. Really good experience to be able to watch a game like that from that kind of perspective, where you're having to really quickly take those thoughts and then verbally push them out of your mouth in a coherent way. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a really interesting way of doing it. But ultimately, the Bees are going to get results if they play like that. Like, Leeds are always going to win games. That's just the way they are. They are really good. Oh, I was talking about Swindon, but actually same goes for Leeds, I guess. Sorry, Tom, you weren't specific there. But the thing with the Bees are going to get, if they play like that, if they are consistent enough to play with that level of quality the entire way through, the Bees are going to get results. But this is what I said as well on the stream, was that the issue for the Bees is that consistency. If the Bees win 3 of 4 for the rest of the year, they're going to be title contenders. But the issue for the Bees is that it is that consistency level. That is the big question mark here. Can Britton Priest perform to that level consistently as a starting netminder? Can those energy levels be kept up? Do the Bees add in a third import, and does that end up upsetting chemistry? There's a bunch of questions that still kind of need to be answered, and I think they're questions to be had at the end of November, beginning of December, as we creep towards the halfway point of the year. But if the Bees play like that, good teams are going to lose in Slough, and good teams will lose at home to that Bees side that is just, got that work ethic going. They looked much better, I think, than a lot of people have given them credit for. And yes, it's easy to say that when they're playing the best opposition in the league. They're playing like that against Leeds or MK is fine. How will they be able to play like that again against Bristol, when Bristol have maybe bounced back? Can they do that against Solway, against the Raiders? What's going to happen with some of those teams who are a bit further down the track? What will happen there? We look then at the fixtures for this upcoming weekend, which of course is all tomorrow. And according to this, pretty much everything starts at 7, apart from the Raiders, because they're special. They take on the Wildcats at Sapphire Ice and Leisure at 5:15. Then everything else on Saturday is a 7 p.m. face-off. Bristol take on Sheffield. Milton Keynes take on Leeds, a big one for the start of the year. I believe seats are starting to fill up there, looking like a crowd of over 2,000 for that game. Peterborough take on Telford, and the Bees make the visit all the way up to Dumfries to take on the Sharks. And then on Sunday, different face-off times all over the show. 4:30, of course, the headline starter for Sheffield and Bristol's the Puppy Bowl kicks off again this year. 5:15 face-offs in Leeds for the reverse fixture the night before. The Knights take on the Lightning. The Raiders take on the Phantoms at Sapphire Ice and Leisure. That's a 5:15 as well. 5:30 between the Hull Seahawks and the Bees. The Bees, of course, on their big road trip weekend. Looking forward, no doubt, to getting getting fed in the Whittington and Cat after that game in Hull. And then a 6 o'clock face-off on Sunday in Shropshire. Telford versus Solway. One thing we will do, because we can do it, we're going to quickly look at the very embryonic table. Hello, Joe. Thank you for joining. Have a quick look at the embryonic table of the National Division, where, of course, Leeds are top. Because, of course, Leeds are top. That's how that works. And then 2 teams on 7 points. Telford and Hull both on 7. Milton Keynes and the Bees both on 6. They're both 3 from 4. Sheffield have 4 points from their 3 games, so of course they do have a game in hand. They could push themselves up the table a bit. The Wildcats have 3 from 3. The Raiders 3 from 4. Peterborough have only got the 1 win from their 4 games, and then the 2 sides yet to get points on the board. Solway sit above Bristol due to their better goal difference. But yes, of course, the other big bits of National Division news. The first being is that the talismanic captain of the Bristol Pitbulls has gone under something of a cloud of controversy. Owen Sobchak, released by the Bristol Pitbulls this week on Wednesday. Now, the club put out a very, very short, very, very matter-of-fact statement about they're wishing the best for the future and fantastic. Thank you very much. And not really saying a ton else about it. But but of course there has been a bunch of stuff flying around, tons and tons of rumour about reason why I did very briefly ask Bristol if they wanted to say anything about it. They declined. But yes. So now Bristol down at import. And looking as well now, who is not just that, who takes over as captain. So we saw last year that Sobchak was really, really instrumental in kind of powering that Bristol Pitbulls roster. They were a different team when he got injured at the end of last year, and they fell away and fell out of the playoffs pretty much because of it. At the moment they've shipped a lot of goals. They shipped 10 goals against Peterborough, 7 against the Bees. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And like I said, just pulling up the Sobchak statement, it is a paragraph. The Bristol Honda Pitbulls can announce that import Owen Sobchak is departing the club with immediate effect. He scored 50 points in 37 games last season. The club would like to thank Owen for his time in Bristol and wish him the best of luck with his career going forward. So about as polite as you can be without saying something's gone sideways. There is a lot of talk that the club do not wish to publicly go on the record and respond to. So this is the thing, because Mac here in the chat has put it isn't a rumour. I asked the club, and the club declined to comment. That's where I can go with that. That's what I can say on that one. So we can kind of roll on from there. And the other, where Bristol have dropped an import, Peterborough have picked one up. Now, as far as we're aware, this new lad counts. The new lad does count as an import. He says desperately trying to pull out the fact that he cannot remember his full name in the immediacy, because I want to get his name correct before we do anything. He's desperately skimming through, because of course he's had a few bits and pieces going on. A tenfold walloping that was gotten. All we need is the lad's name. It's Ivan. People may want to deny it, but I've heard the exact same thing from a lot of people other than Jamie. No smoke without fire and all that. No, and that's the thing as well, that there are a lot of there has been discussions of an altercation of some description happening. Like I say, the thing I'm doing here is I asked, and that's kind of where that stopped. So, I want to be able, when these kind of things happen, I always want to give the club the opportunity to kind of say their piece. Did that with the Wildcats, because of course the Wildcats knew I'd be speaking about them. I asked whether they wanted to say anything, and they gave me a statement, and that's great. I asked very briefly asked around in Bristol about it on Wednesday. They said they didn't have anything to say on the record. It's kind of where I move on. But yes, Peterborough, with the signing of Ivan Björkley Nordstrom, Swedish player. Did play very briefly as a junior in Scotland, but clearly not enough. My understanding is that he is the third import for the Phantoms this year. And what he certainly adds is size. I saw a photograph of him from training during the week. In skates, he was higher than 1 point of the boards. This is a tall man who has joined them. The one thing, actually, given the fact, and also as well, he must be the first new import name. One of the new imports that Peterborough have signed for quite some time, because they've obviously had a lot of the same people come back and the like, and ultimately Slava forced into a slightly different direction, and we will see what happens. He makes his debut this weekend for the Phantoms. What sort of an impact will he have? Look at one of the players who he threatened to attack, who replied to my thread, bang to rights. Well, there we go. Like I said though, Jamie, I operate on the fact that I give the clubs the opportunity as well to have their say. They have chosen not to. That is what I am putting out. I don't think this is a difficult concept to get our heads around. But yeah, so Björklund Nordstrom, aside from having an inordinately long name, it remains to be seen. He's obviously played at some relatively decent levels, played Swedish 4th tier, played Swedish 3rd tier, which are arguably better than the national division. It's just a case of where he fits. Peterborough, ultimately as well, there was some discussion about the fact that they've just sort of not replaced a couple of parts that they've lost. No real replacement for Glenn Billing, no real replacement for Luke Johnson, who's got that ability to be versatile. I'm sorry, Swindon, though, he's still not a defenseman. But maybe this is Björklund Nordstrom is an attempt to fill that billing gap, I think, maybe. It's a bit hard to tell in the immediacy. However, what he deserves is he gets the chance to kind of come in, have a crack, and let's kind of see what he does and where he fits into it all. That's what I'm interested to see. Either way, time ticking along. So let's go have a look at North 1 very, very quickly as we head up north. And not a great weekend for the Whitley Warriors. Obviously, new coaching, new GM, Tony Hand leading the way there. But before the end of September, the Hull Jets have beaten Billingham and beaten Whitley Bay. A 4-2 win for Hull on the Saturday. It's a fantastic way of doing it. Whereas Billingham got to play on the big pad at the NIC and took massive advantage of that. A 10-2 win for the Stars, absolutely pumping the Nottingham Lions in that one, in the second of 5 games to take place for the Lions on the big pad this year. On Sunday then, more of the division in action. The Scimitars, well, they come close. They led Blackburn for quite a while in this game before the Hawks eventually woke up and powered their way to a 5-4 win. The Scimitars, of course, with one more point already this season than they made last year due to their win against Nottingham the week before. And a first win this year for the Deeside Dragons. They managed to knock off the Solihull Barons by 4-1. As the Lions themselves got a point on the board. They got a point out of Widnes earlier in the season, and then they comfortably pushed their way past the Wild in Nottingham on Sunday. A 4-1 win for Matt Bradbury's side there against the Wild, who'll be a bit disappointed, but also travelled very, very short to that game. It should be said, I believe there were 12 plus 1. Wasn't a very big roster. And then the big northeastern derby at Hillhead, and Billingham stamped their authority. A 9-2 win, 19 goals in 2 games this weekend to push themselves into a dominant position atop North 1 at the moment. People move on tonight, we've heard exactly the same thing today. We've done that bit. They, Swindon, don't like people saying Bebris and Johnson are not D-men. They don't, but this doesn't detract from the fact that Bebris isn't a D-man. Jamie has said it there. Edgars Bebris is a forward. He skates like a forward. He plays like a forward. He's a forward. And he's on D because Swindon have struggled to get defensemen and have tried to make some necessary adaptations. Same way Luke Johnson. He's not really a D-man. When they lost out, when Reece Kelly went to the Elite League, which, fair enough, they've pulled in a guy who played a bit of D last year because he had to, and have tried to make him a D. But yeah, he's not. Edgars Bebris remains he remains out of position for me. Kelly Coles, Hull Jets, who should have been in 2 last season. Well, I mean, they were pretty heavily challenged by Telford 2. I'd be interested to hear, Kelly, what your thoughts on Tigers 2 are in that respect there. Though, of course, Tigers are being, by the looks of it, at least in the immediacy, are going to be quite heavily challenged by Sutton this year. Let's go Lions. Chris Gatsby's Lions meter perked up there. By the way, this weekend then in North 1, can Hull continue this good form as they head into October? On Saturday, they're the only game in town in North 1. They take on the Blackburn Hawks at the world's most versatile arena. 5:30 the face-off there in Hull. And a few games then on Sunday. 5:15 in North Wales for Deeside versus Sheffield. Can Deeside get their second win of the season? Meanwhile, everything else is a 5:30 face-off. Blackburn travel to the Forum to take on the Billingham Stars. Solihull take on Hull at Hobbsmoat Road, and the Widnes Wild return home. 2 teams who got stung very, very badly on Sunday. They take on Whitley. Which team will rebound and get some points off of the weekend? Which means we then quickly scoop to the table for North 1. Oh, pressed the wrong button there. Well done, Anthony. Great start. Thoroughly professional. As ever. And as we can see, 6 wins from 8 games. Currently sees Billingham top of the table, although Whitley do have a game in hand, but Billingham would lead on head-to-head should those two go up against each other. Bit of a drop down then. Blackburn have 8 points from 5. Hull, well, they've only played 4 games and they have a 3-1 record, which is pretty decent, all things considered. 4 points then on the board for Solihull, 3 for Nottingham, Widnes, Deeside and Sheffield all on 2 points so far. Then the Wild have only played 4 games. Deeside and Sheffield have played 5. Oh, apologies, Kelly. I didn't realise it was hadn't put the 2 parts of that together. We're not bottom. You're not, Chris. The Lions aren't just bottom. They're positively mid-table. It's the bottom of the mid-table, but there's 3 teams below you now. So well done on that front. If nothing else, that is a sizable and solid start there for the Lions. 2 is the Development League. So's 1. I'd make the point. There's a Finn Braden reference I can make there, but I won't make it. Either way, South 1, when everything clicks through. Couple of obviously a few decent games. Lot of controversy out of the weekend. Still waiting on officially waiting on a DOPS decision from one of them, because we're pretty certain we can guess what the actual outcome of it all was. We just need to see whether. I'm just going to have a quick squiz and see if they've actually made an announcement on it. They have not. Brilliant. Either way, so last Saturday in South 1 then. Local-ish derby, the Kent-Essex battle over in Romford between the Buccaneers and the Dynamos. The Dynamos pushed hard by the Buccaneers, 7-5 the final score. Goals galore actually on Saturday in South 1. Chelmsford, well, they were quite a way ahead at one stage. Slough clawed themselves back into it, but ultimately the Chieftains with the 8-5 win at the Hangar over the Jets. The Jets, I said at the beginning of the year, I wondered what was going to happen with them in terms of goals. Well, clearly that top line, the Jets' holy trinity of Moore, and Goodchild, are definitely doing bits and pieces for them, and they're getting a little bit of secondary scoring chipping in. But that Chelmsford team, when it's on fire, appears to go very well. And then, of course, that Chelmsford side utterly fell off a cliff, losing 6-2 at home to the Romford Buccaneers, a result that not a lot of people saw coming. And of course, big questions for both sides. A fight at the end of the game between Sonny Phillips and Jordan Lawday. Both were given a 5 in game. That should see both netminders suspended, which of course leads in, given the fact that Chelmsford have a game tomorrow night, should lead to some very interesting questions about who will step between the pipes for the Chieftains, especially given backup Ethan Frayne has not started a lot at any level that he's played at. Either way, Slough rebounded from their loss. They went down to Kent and got a 5-2 win over Invicta. So Slough, again, still some early pace setters. And the competitive debut of Petr Cech for the Oxford City Stars didn't quite go according to plan. A good solid win for the Solent Devils, 4-2. They win in Petr Cech's debut for the Oxford City Stars. So again, a great result for Alex Murray's team as they look to try and better the sort of last couple of years, where they have very much been the bridesmaid instead of the bride. That gives us a table that, no, not tons has happened in it. Unsurprisingly, though, Streatham are top. Who would have thought it? Having only played 3 league fixtures, and they have a perfect record of only conceded 3 goals in 3 games. A couple of other teams then on 6 points. They've all played 5 games. Chelmsford, Slough and Invicta keeping up the pace behind. Solent have 4 points from 3 games, but of course if they won both their games in hand, they would be in a very, very strong position themselves. The MK Thunder have only played twice. They have one win from their game over the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have played 6 games, and that one win that they've gotten over Chelmsford gets them off the board for the season. Oxford, bottom of the table, 3 goals scored in 3 games and 15 conceded. The City Stars are going to need to have a bit of a rethink and a bit of a change-up as to how they go about doing things. But given they've only played 3 games, there is time for Simon Anderson's side to do something with that. Slough are written off every year, but they always surprise people. Smiths has a really talented bunch there. I think they'll be right up there. They certainly look it. The big question, I think, having watched them with my own eyes, UK Shepherd, is what happens when a team solves and shuts down that top line? Where's the secondary scoring coming from for Slough? I think is the really, really big question, because they've shown that they can be scored on. The game obviously I saw in Oxford, Brett Massey had a really, really good game, but he wasn't massively challenged by a somewhat muted attack on that front. But yeah, when teams start to figure out how to play against the Moore brothers and Jack Goodchild, what happens? There's the question there, I think, for Slough. Secondary scoring wise, who steps up? Don't expect to get any points this weekend for Oxford with a double header against Streatham. If Oxford get a point out of this weekend, I think they can be happy. And for me, the game that they need to target is that one that is just getting off the mark as quick as they possibly can in that first game on Saturday. We'll quickly skip back though, because of course I've just realised we've not done the fixtures for South One for the weekend. But because as Kaidi has mentioned there in the chat, it's a tough weekend for Oxford. They are on the high road on Saturday evening to take on Streatham. Solent take on Chelmsford. That looks like it'll be a very, very good game, all things considered. But yes, who will be in net for Chelmsford is a bit of a question. Slough take on the MK Thunder at the Hangar on Saturday evening. Games then on Sunday, and having met in Slough, they now meet at the Riverside. Chelmsford take on Slough at 6 o'clock. Oxford return the favour to Streatham. They will host the Red Hawks at 6:15 at the Ox Pens on Sunday. Worst comes to worst, Kaidi. You may not get any points, but you can at least get one of those £2 cupcakes that they're selling now that do look very, very good. Is Alex Murray as feisty or nice as he is on roller? Yes. Absolutely. He is exactly the same player in both arts of the sport, Kelly. No arguments there. And of course, lots of roller guys playing for Streatham, playing for Solent, as well. So, tons to be said there for it. Either way, we will keep banging our way through the results from the weekend, scuttling our way through, because of course one league that we always have to make sure that we have a chat about, but never has tons and tons of games due to the short number, is the is North 2. Only the one game, in fact, taking place on the Saturday. The Bradford Bulldogs put up a brave and spirited performance, but eventually lose out in overtime to the Coventry NIHL Blaze. The Altrincham Aces, after losing last week to Coventry, get themselves a sizable win over at the Forum up in Billingham. They beat the Buccaneers by 7-3. Well, Bradford only end up with a 1-point weekend. Sutton are now 7 for 7, a 5-0 win for the Sting away in Bradford. And Coventry as well, keeping up the pace, a 7-1 win for them in Hull against the Kingston Sharks. Last year, one of the arguably the biggest team and one of the title favourites, Telford, they had pushed very hard by the Sheffield Titans over at Ice Sheffield, but ultimately the Tigers come out with a 7-5 win. What that means then is we've got pretty much a full-ish looking slate for Saturday, although we don't have a face-off time for Altrincham and Nottingham. They'll be playing in Manchester at some point. Kingston take on Sutton at 12:30, which is a fascinating time to see a game actually played. But fair enough, it seems to work. 5:40 p.m. face-off then at Ice Sheffield later on in the day for the Sheffield Titans and the Billingham Buccaneers. Telford take on Coventry in what is an early top of the table clash for Tigers 2 and the Blaze. Sunday, Nottingham take on Telford on the small pad at the NIC. That's a 7:20 face-off. Sutton take on Bradford. That is a 1 p.m. face-off over at Ice Sheffield. What we then do is we then pull up the league table. And as we can see, the Sting, 7 from 7, 14 points, and clear of everybody else at the moment. But of course, as we can see there, Telford have only played 3 games and a perfect through 3. Coventry, though, good start. I did say, even though they lost to the Basingstoke Buffalo in that pre-season game, there was a few bits in that Coventry Blaze side that made me wonder whether they would be able to do some damage. 5 wins from 6 is a very good start to the year. Telford then in third currently. Bradford 5 from 4. Sheffield 5 from 6. Altrincham have only played 3 games and just have the 1 win. Nottingham have 2 from 5. Billingham 2 from 6. Kingston, the newest team in the division, along with Billingham, are yet to get off the mark. 4 games played, 4 defeats so far, 28 goals conceded for the Sharks. Sutton will do well this season. Yeah, I think so. That's certainly a very good start. The issue, I mean, injuries. There's a bunch of things, of course, that can be factored into account here for these things kind of going forward. Of course, like we've seen, 6:15 face-off in Altrincham. Thank you. But as we've seen, we've got Coventry have made a really good start. Sutton have made a good start. Telford are 3 from 3 have made a really good start. Altrincham traditionally will kind of pick up mid-season and do well. So there's plenty of road to be run in North 2 this season. And then of course, we need to look. We will have to have a quick look at South 2. Of course, as we know now, the Wildcats, Swindon Wildcats 2, out of the league. Joe's not had the opportunity to update the fixture bits and pieces. We also don't have much in the way of results there from it. There we go. That's the 30th of last weekend. But the big local derby there in South 2, and the playoff champs have got themselves a good solid win against Chelmsford. 8-2 win for the Mustangs there as they power past their local rivals. Peterborough. Now this was an interesting game, of course, because this was a fixture, Peterborough hosting Bristol, that wasn't played last year. It was awarded to the Pitbulls, and it saw the Pitbulls win the title as a result. But they play it this year, and Peterborough, off the back of their big win the weekend before against the Cardiff Fire, win by 5 goals to 2. Whereas Guildford, one of the other teams, they're definitely going to be sniffing in and around the title, win by 12 goals to 2 down in Gosport in their local derby against Solent. Peterborough beats Cardiff by 7 goals to 2 to revenge that 1-0 defeat. And then there's goals galore, and the new import for Lee Valley getting a hat-trick in his first game, but it's not enough. Streatham win by 9 goals to 5 in the North versus South London derby. Apologies there. As we can see, it says Basingstoke versus Swindon. That game is not going ahead on Saturday, but a few other games are. Cardiff take on Bristol in the West Country, in the local derby down there in the West Country. That should be a pretty decent game. 6:45 down in Cardiff Bay. Chelmsford host Peterborough at 6 on Saturday. A 5:30 p.m. face-off at Alexandra Palace. A repeat of the playoff final from last year. Invicta travel to Haringey. Sunday then, and where you will find me this weekend, I'll be back at the Spectrum. I'm going up to see the Buffalo away and get an opportunity to see the Guildford Phoenix with my own eyes. 6:30 p.m. face-off this coming Sunday at the Spectrum. Also 6:30 p.m. face-off in Peterborough for the Phantoms against the Solent Junior Devils. 6:45 on the High Road, then the last fixture of the weekend for the Streatham Blackhawks taking on the Chelmsford Warriors. Table still very embryonic. Lots of teams have played. Teams have played more games than others. Because currently it's Cardiff and Bristol at the top of the table, both with five points. Cardiff, they're having played 4 games, Bristol 5. Invicta, Chelmsford, Guildford, Peterborough, Haringey and Streatham all on 4 points. So lots to be said there. A variety of amount of games being played. Guildford there only played 2 games, perfect through 2 games. Same with Haringey, only played 2 games and perfect through 2 games as well. Basingstoke have 1 win and 1 loss for 2 points from 2. Solent with their 1 win of the season over Cardiff have 2 points from 3. Swindon, of course, are now removed from the league. They'll be removed from the table in due course once the official word comes through. The Oxford Rising Stars have lost the only game that they've played. Lee Valley, well, they scored a few goals last weekend and ran Haringey close, but still yet to get on the board. 4 wins, 4 defeats, and only 10 goals scored for the Lee Valley Lions. And with that, we've gone through every single game across the NIHL from the past weekend. We've looked at all the fixtures going forward. So that opens us up, ladies and gentlemen. Free reign, anything we want to talk about. I'm not going to hang around for too long tonight, of course, being a Friday night. I've got to make my way through this, which is, like I say, very tasty, but very strong. You can taste the alcohol in it. Certainly from my perspective, though, like I say, alcohol is a quality over quantity thing. 1 10% beer like this is much better, in my opinion, than drinking a load of not very tasty beer that you can get from other places. But free reign, questions, comments, anything anybody wants to throw in. Whilst you guys are typing in the chat, I'm very quickly going to see whether Dops have bothered to announce anything. See whether we have got any other bits and pieces. Nothing there. Nothing there that we can see. Of course, there's hockey going on across Europe this evening. Just very, very quickly going to have a quick scoop at the DEL. Let's see whether we can get any results out of there. But yes, we await still. It is Friday evening. We've had no announcements from DOPS about any bits and pieces that are happening. Although, like I say, you venture, given that they both got a 5+ game, that both Sonny Phillips and Jordan Lawday will be suspended for this weekend. What have we got? So most of the games appear to have finished in the DEL, which doesn't appear to have tons of... Frankfurt winning 7-3 away at Dusseldorf was a bit of a surprise. No other huge results there. But there's a big question, actually, and something people can put in the chat. Taking out British hockey and taking out the NHL, what other hockey are we watching this year? So, are we watching things from Europe? Are we watching major junior hockey? Are we watching the AHL? I know I'm looking forward to the NCAA hockey coming back. That's always one of the things I really, really enjoy keeping tabs on because it's pretty chaotic. But yeah, what other hockey are we watching? What games are we heading to this weekend? Like I say, if you're heading down to Guildford on Sunday, I will be there. I will not be in the commentary booth for that particular game. I'm going to stand back and I'm going to watch the Buffalo and try and enjoy myself as much as I possibly can. And also, like I say, the Phoenix are a team that I've wondered... where I've wanted to see them with my own eyes for some time, and I'm getting the opportunity to do that now. Because obviously Guildford are a really, really good team at this level. And having interviewed Josh Sherrington for Hockey Stories, he's obviously, told me about the ethos. I want to see that ethos in action, I wonder why Leeds managed to get Neely as a Brit and Phantom's got Nordstrom as an import. Both played the same amount of time in the UK. It's a question you'd have to ask the people in charge. Olympics qualifiers in Cardiff announced today. GB, Romania, China, plus the qualifier from the round below. Yep, the pre-qualifying round to happen in February of this year. For me, has to be a focus for GB. Has to be a focus for GB to try and get Olympic qualification. We talk about funding for the national team and bits and pieces like that. How are we going to get it? It's not Worlds, it's Olympics. Especially for winter sports. World Championships don't mean a lot in winter sports to the British public. Get us in the Olympics, get us on the BBC, that'll be massive. Germany 4, Walcomb's team playing tonight. €6.25 for the stream, forgot to buy it. I wouldn't worry too much there, Chris Callahan of Blue Line Photography, because that's a pre-season game, Chris. It's not a it's not a league fixture. They do not start the regular season until next week, and I believe Amberg, which is who Brendan is playing for, are playing on Sunday. Sunday the 15th is Brendan Walcombe's first game. It's a 4 p.m. UK time face-off for Brendan Walcombe and the Hamburg Lions. What I want to do very quickly, actually, let's just see if we can get a score and see how he is doing. I should actually drop him a line and see how he is. Charlotte, I always keep an eye on the AHL, more specifically the Henderson Silver Knights. Reasonable. I assume potentially that you might be a Golden Knights fan. AHL, always a ton of fun. Always great to see the folks, the sort of the young guys on the way up. Always keep tab. Having seen them live, I keep tabs on the Toronto Marlies. Being a Cats fan, I always keep tabs on the Hershey Bears, who of course won the Calder Cup last year. What have we got? That is the preview, rather than the actual score. What's Brendan Walcombe's lot actually done in this game? Do we have anything? Josh Sherrington, another great roller player. Yes, he is. Those who play roller and ice, do they benefit? I mean, this is a conversation I actually did have with Josh, because the stereotype is that roller guys, when it comes onto ice, can't skate but have very, very good hands. It certainly helps. It certainly appears to help with hand-eye coordination. It must be said. We don't want DEL2. We don't want Oberliga. We want Bayernliga. Who are they playing? So yes, Brendan Walcombe and the Hamburg Lions are playing ASC Vilshofner Wölfe. So the Vilshof Wolves. No word either way. Can't seem to get a score on that one. I am a Golden Knights fan. Well, there we go. Then that would make sense. Very, very happy lady then from the summer. It's going to try and find anything else. See if we can get a score from that one. Doesn't look like we can. No, but no, certainly keeping a... Obviously, as I do, try to watch hockey in a bunch of different places. Do we have anything? We do not. Can't find a score for that one. I'm sure something will get put on Bayern hockey at some point. The Bayernliga is the 4th tier. So Brendan Walcombe's ended up in the 4th division, and it's very much a regional division. That one is the 4th tier of German hockey is very much regionalised. 3rd tier is North and South, and the 4th tier is a bunch of regional feeder leagues into the respective bits and pieces. But there are some very, very good teams in that league that he's going into. Klostersee have a lot of pedigree. Miesbach have a lot of pedigree. Erding have a lot of pedigree. Following Litvínov this season because of Liam Kurt. Great way to spend some time, get to see some different hockey there, Jamie. And of course, get yourself across Czech Republic. Great cheap weekend. I managed Josh and Jed at GB. I think it benefits players. My husband was GB head coach for things. Fantastic. Certainly I know as well Jed's on the ice this year for the Phoenix. So if I speak to them, Kelly, I will pass along my regards to you. There's a live ticker. Do we have a live ticker? Can we get a result of what's going on? We cannot. No, they are specifically only doing... They are only doing league games on there. They're not bothering with the pre-season games by the look of it. Litvínov played tonight. Yeah, I normally on a Friday, because of course we stream on Wednesdays usually, so normally on a Friday night I'd be picking up a DEL game. Normally Berlin. When it comes to European hockey, I will generally pick German hockey over anything else. Sometimes I'll pick up the stream and watch Rostock, which is the first hockey team I ever watched. Still a big Rostock Piranhas fan, but they don't do the streams are not super cheap in the north and in Oberliga North. I struggled to find any info / stats for Ansberg. Their Facebook had some graphics and their preseason stuff he's bagged a few already. He certainly has. This is one of the advantages of speaking German, though, Chris, is that I can just read it. But yes, he's definitely picked up a few points in preseason. But yeah, the league season for the Bayernliga is next weekend. and Brendan's team do not play until Sunday. Yes, a 4 p.m. face-off, Chris. If you're not travelling to Hull, you're not travelling to Solway, you can sit down and try and watch that game. Sprada.tv for folk who are interested. Sprada.tv, actually, if you want to check out some German hockey, is not a bad way of doing it. They do streams for DEL2 sides, Oberliga North, Oberliga South, so the third tier. Cardiff have just signed their new import from the Oberliga North, and they've got some Bayernliga sides as well. You won't find much fourth tier stuff outside the Bayernliga, but the Bayernliga certainly used to give like loads of Slovakian and Czech imports into the old EPL. So definitely a league to keep an eye on if you're interested in such things. But yeah, normally I will flick between any of the Germanic speaking leagues in Europe just because I speak German. So I will watch a bit of Swiss. I'll watch a bit of the Swiss National League. I'll watch a bit of the DEL. I'll watch a bit of the Ice Liga. One thing I have noticed though, I'll see if I can pull it up. There is a site now, because of course one thing that a lot of people really liked was watching the SHL on what was Premier Sports is now Viaplay, and they have, I believe, there is a streaming site now. I've just got to try and find it because it has just gone live, because they were doing an offer. Here it is. I'll pull this up very, very quickly. If it's going to load. Try and get this to load. But it's this site here, homeofhockey.tv. He says, desperately hoping it will load. Seems my internet is obviously chugging away. Yes, I'm aware this website uses cookies. But this is an interesting one, because you can get because aside from the fact they're doing this early bird discount now, so you can get 15% off an all access pass with the early bird pricing. So you've got a couple of choices here, where €100 for the year. You do not get Champions Hockey League in Britain because of the deal with Viaplay. But what you would get with an all-access pass here is you get the Finnish Liga, you get the SHL, which is the top level of men's hockey in Sweden, you get the SCHL, which is the top women's league in Sweden, and you'd get the Allsvenskan, which is the second tier of men's Swedish hockey, which is still excellent hockey. Modo, the team that's owned by Petter Forsberg, is in that league. So certainly a consideration for you if you wanted to look at this. Or you've got these monthly options here. You can get all the Swedish stuff for €12 a month, or you can just get the Liga for €7.99. But if you think that all-access pass, €100 for the year with 15% off, that's €85. So what's that, like about £82-83 for a year's worth of 5 really decent leagues worth of hockey. So that's a consideration for people to make. Not for me. I don't watch enough of those respective leagues to justify that spend, considering some of the other hockey I watch. But that is an option there for folk if they wanted to not wanted to have to deal with streaming sites and pop-ups and all those kind of things. Can't make the trip, the Great Northern Bees trip. Both streams are very reasonably priced, but also the F1 on the other screen. Yep, the wife is very much happy about the F1 being on this weekend. Either way, last call for questions, comments, and anything else. I've gone longer than I was intending to this evening. We are indeed looking forward to watching Brendan play. Fair enough. But yes, thank you for joining me for this sort of, like I say, for this sort of change of schedule. We'll be back as normal next Wednesday at 8 p.m. because I'm not commentating anywhere on Wednesday. But like I say, the signs all point to the fact that I will be back again at some point for Guildford commentating, which, having had so much fun doing it the first time, seems silly not to try it again. What I will say, and like I say, I'll do something for the web for Banners on the Wall to kind of give my view on the game, but it was just really interesting because having grown up near to Guildford before I moved to the south coast for uni, being in the Spectrum is a very surreal experience, because when you go somewhere as a younger person and you come back as an adult, you see things through those eyes. And I was in the Spectrum, as a young child, like 10, 11, up to, around, I think the last time I went to the Spectrum before I moved south, I was like 17, 18. and you see things through that sight, and bits of the spectrum just have not changed at all. Very surreal. But yeah, like I say, this is your last chance to get anything in. And just give people an opportunity there just to put stuff in. It says, still no word from Dops. It's 9:15 on Friday night. I hope the teams have been told. Da, 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 da. Nothing drastic there. Still no word from Dops. It's where we get stuff at like 10 o'clock at night again. Either way, we will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the National Division. Join us for Banners on the Road as I take my merry, weird, bizarre road trip throughout British hockey for this season. And you can read in-depth thoughts about all the games I've seen. It is going to be a bit of a jumble sale of bits and pieces this year, but hopefully you will join us along the way for the sort of in-depth analysis you won't find anywhere else. As well as you can read our Hockey Story series, long-form, in-depth pieces going through from the 19th century to the present day, into war, behind the Iron Curtain, and back for more. Players, officials, all sorts of movers and shakers from the world of ice hockey. The back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast is there, as well as Dice Hockey, our tabletop ice hockey simulation game that you can download for free, and you can play it with bits and pieces around your house when you get the rule sheet off of the website. All I ask is, if you do download it and you do enjoy it, please consider donating some money to Parkinson's UK. My dad has suffered from Parkinson's now for over a decade, and it sucks and it's not very nice. And anything we can do to get towards research and a cure for that'd be massively, massively appreciated. But like I say, a ton of stuff there, over a decade's worth of stuff to check out at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, it's at BannersOTW. That's the best place to kind of keep up with stuff that I do and my sort of rolling commentary of whatever's happening in the world of ice hockey at the time. Facebook.com/BannersOnTheWall if you like getting your news through your Facebook feed. Every piece that goes on the website, every stream link, that all goes onto Facebook and it will come through your feed, so you can check that out there. And of course, as I say, the virtual busking hat does go around, especially at times like this. If you've enjoyed what you get from Banners on the Wall and you'd like to contribute a little bit to the cost, please do not feel obligated. But if you'd like to chuck a couple of quid into the hat, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. All of the links are down there in the description of this YouTube video. And of course, you're on YouTube. We're the home of the What's Current stream, the NHL's first and, as far as I'm aware, only live show that covers every single division of the NHL structure from 1 and 2 and the National as well. Make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, drop a comment. Let's keep feeding the hamster algorithm so he can keep running on his wheel, to keep making this bigger and better, and we can hopefully, like I say, we've had some great chats as well this evening in the chat. It's great to have people coming in, some new people, some different people joining in as well, which is great. The more folk we get coming in, the more eyes we can get on the NHL structure, which I maintain is worth that input and worth that effort. There is great hockey to be had, whatever the division, and so great to have you along with us for this special Friday night edition of the NHL's first, only and best live show, the What's Current stream. And there we go, done for another week. We are back next Wednesday at the usual time of 8 PM here on YouTube. Like I say, I took the opportunity this week to do something different, to do something bigger and better than I ever thought I'd get the opportunity to do in British hockey. I did it by standing on the shoulders of all of you lovely people who've supported me for over a decade. I thank you for it. I wouldn't have had the opportunity without many of you pushing me to get better at what I do. It is not lost on me, the impact that you guys have had, and I'm very, very thankful for it. It looks like hopefully I'm going to get another go at it as well. So let's keep pushing on. Let's all keep punching for the stars, and we'll all get there in the end. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then please, wherever you are, please do be safe. As my friend Scotty would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long until next time. Enjoy your hockey this weekend wherever you find it. We'll be back in our regular home Wednesday night, 8 PM, back here on YouTube.